Thanks for tuning in to this episode of I Have Something to Say, where subject matter experts are unafraid and unapologetic about sharing their perspectives regarding issues that impact our lives. They speak up because basically they give a shit. So if you're tired of canned answers and want to finally hear real people cut through the BS and talk about real issues, this is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Sami Heyman Marrero from Urbander, and behind our mixer is our producer, Chris Majoka from UdoU. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited today because this is one busy lady. And I was like, please, Marlyn, let's make time so we can talk about all the amazing stuff she's doing. But let me formally introduce you. This is Marlyn Bonzil-Juste. She is the owner of Top Choice Medical Transport, and it's a non-emergency transportation company here in Central Florida that was founded in 2020, and she'll talk about why and how this all came to happen. But she's also the most recently elected president of the Greater Haitian American Chamber of Commerce here in Orlando. And I went to your swearing in, and I'm so proud. And it was just epic. And I'm so excited that we're making this time to talk about, because I felt that you were the perfect person to talk about this intersection between leadership and entrepreneurship. Welcome, Marlyn. How are you?
Doing fantastic. Good morning, Sammy, and thank you for having me on this podcast. I am truly excited. I love the topic, and I love how the attitude as far as how we just jump in and talk about the real ish that goes on in the background. So I'm doing amazing, and thank you again for having me.
Yes, thank you. And listen, you've been very involved in the community and with the Greater Haitian Chamber for years. This is not a new thing for you. You've been committed to community and to really strengthening
Right.
the entrepreneurship ecosystem, particularly in the Haitian community, right?
That is
For a long time, right? This is not a sprint; it's a marathon. And so, but also you've dived into entrepreneurship. You're like the epitome of what an entrepreneurial spirit looks like and lives like, right? Because this is your jam. Entrepreneurship is your jam. You have a consulting firm too, right?
yeah,
um
correct.
but but why and how did you jump into transport? I mean, just I know the story, but it's like you saw an opportunity, and
Right.
also in a void. You're filling in a gap. And so
Right.
tell us
Yeah.
how what entrepreneurship looks like and diving into it looks like, at the spur of a moment, or within a short time frame.
Correct. And you used the right term, Sammy. It's understanding and identifying your void. So when you make a decision to move into entrepreneurship, you have to understand what it is that I'm really able to commit to as far as my service or a product. What can I contribute to a lack that there may be there already existing, or maybe it's not even there at all, and you realize that it's needed in your community, it's needed in your market. So those are the things that you have to identify early on. Forget about just having a passion, right? Passion is great, but that does not answer to a need of your particular community or your particular market. So those are the things that you have to acknowledge, identify, and know what it is that you have. So for myself, it became very clear. I came from a background of working in corporate America, anywhere from marketing, business development, executive management positions on from different industry. So I have a diverse background. So my diverse background have allowed me to work with different type of group, different products and different solutions that I've provided. And I love that. But I got to a point back in 2014 where I realized that, okay, I've gained a lot of experience. I've worked with different people. I know some of my skill sets, and they basically were not aligning with where I was on the different company with the different company that I was working with. So I had people coming to me, upper management and other colleagues. It's just like, listen, you are more than what it is that you're doing right now. So I pretty much outgrew the circle that I was in, outgrew the space that I was in. And that became very clear to me at that point that, okay, I need to venture out on the whole aspect of entrepreneurship. But it was much more than that, Sammy, because again, having those thoughts, you have to start realizing, all right, if I'm going to venture out and put myself out there and take that risk, because it is a risk that you're taking when you take that first step, is
Mhm.
what does my circle looks like? Who are the individual that I've been, servicing outside of work? Who have I helped outside of my day-to-day work? And that's was the catalyst really as to what led me to say, hey, I'm gonna go ahead and launch MJ Solutions. So these are the things that I should start getting your wheel going when you're looking to launch out from a corporate setting to entrepreneurship, in my opinion.
Yes, no, I totally agree. I absolutely agree. And it's that circle, it's that it's not a safety net, it's more of and we've had these discussions before. It's like a tribe, right? It's like your
Yes,
family, your
precisely.
trusted colleagues, friends from the industry, right? In
Yeah.
those corporate settings that you can rely on. And that happened to me too when I started my business. I just
Mhm.
started calling everybody I knew, right?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was a trusted friend, and that at some point I had an exchange that reaped something good or good results, right? Because so then
Mhm.
that they could vouch for my expertise, right?
Right.
And
Precisely.
so then fast forward to 2020,
Yes.
and what happened? Like, well, I know what happened. It's like transportation in this region sucks, right? So it's we
Yes.
had to know that. And so then, but tell me in your words what happened. It's bigger than that, right?
Absolutely. Bigger and very much closer to me as well. So prior to that, I would say about 3 years prior to 2020, um, I had a team that we started looking into the industry itself, started doing a market research and speaking with different private entity, healthcare entities, and admin who are at different hospitals, just to understand what does that world look like? What are the downfalls and the need? What are their struggles really? Because we understand that this is Central Florida is a beautiful area when it comes to looking into non-emergency or medical transport, because it's where you find a lot of healthcare facilities. You have the baby
Yeah.
boomers, you have so many different entities that are, and that's why you will see a lot of privately owned healthcare facilities just popping up left and right. You'll see them just creating left and right, and because there is a need for it. So when they are opening, as they are opening, then the transportation need just continue to climb. So for us, it was years of research that we did, market research, and speaking in different key individuals who were facing struggles. And struggles can be just not having enough vendors that they will call on to be able to meet the need of their transportation clients. So patients will be sitting there for hours. Others will have important appointments, such as dialysis appointment, and unfortunately, again, due to the lack of vendors that were able to meet those needs, that people would just miss those extremely important appointments that they had. So to me, it even became more relevant because it got close to home. My grandmother was one of those individuals who, at that point, toward the latter part, she had passed since then. Um, she was in need of having dialysis 3 times a week. And my aunt, one of my aunt, was her caregiver. And I would watch my aunt get up extremely early in the morning. I'm talking about 4 a.m., get my grandmother ready, get herself ready, and then waited hours and hours for a transportation to come. and only to be told like 9 a.m. get a call say, unfortunately, we got overbooked. We're not going to be able to come. And that was heart wrenching. She will call the family members and then just, complain about the situation. And we couldn't be of help because my grandmother needed a transport with specific vans, equipment to be able to move her. She started on a wheelchair and eventually she had to be transported via stretcher. So none
Mm.
of us were able to do so to just go ahead and help my aunt out. It had to be specific van equipped in such. So it came really, really close to me when that started
Mm.
happening. Like, okay, there's gotta be something there. There's gotta be that was really the one step I needed to just help me to move forward with that project. So my team and I, we just came together and say, okay, you know what, this is the time that we actually explore moving forward with this new venture.
Yes, and I'm sure that with the pandemic, it was
Yeah,
also very timely because more and more
extremely.
people also relied
Absolutely. With the
on
spike of
that support.
COVID,
Hmm.
yes, with the spike of COVID, it became crazy. Like the hospital didn't have places to keep the patient. They had to go to dialysis. They couldn't it was and we came really into the heart of craziness, but it felt great. As crazy as it was for us last year and 2020, even last year, this year started to level out a bit, but the past couple of years for sure. And we were just so pleased to be part of the solutions. Like we will see the faces of the healthcare providers like drained and tired and not knowing where to go. So that was such a
A
great feeling to
rewarding. Yeah, I
know
could
that,
imagine it was so
yes,
rewarding,
extremely
right?
rewarding. Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
And
Yes.
the patients too, because I'm sure that when they see you coming, and
Yes.
I know that that it's reliable and that it's,
Correct.
up to the standards, right, of
Correct.
care and all of
Correct.
that they feel relief too, right, that
Right.
they're in the hands of, yeah.
Yes,
I
and you use a great term, Sammy, standard of care, because you have
yeah.
to understand going into this, I really just put myself in the position of my aunt, because all she needed was someone to call her and say, "Hey, listen, Mrs. So and So, we're not able to make it at the 5 o'clock. We were supposed to pick up your mother. We're having to reschedule instead of having her seated for hours. So that courtesy call would have gone a long way. So that's really at the heart of our mission here at Top Choice is to understand that we have to put ourselves in the position of those that we serve, right? If it was
Mhm.
my mom, if it was my grandmother, if it was my aunt, so on and so forth, how would I want to be treated? And a phone call goes a long, long way.
Yes, definitely. And so I'm just so glad that you know, that you're at the helm of filling
Yeah.
in this gap. And
Yes.
also, as communities become more and more diverse,
Mm,
that you have the
yes.
cultural intelligence also to be
Yes.
mindful of the
Right.
idiosyncrasies, right, of religion
Yes.
and culture and tradition
Yes.
and how
Yes.
we handle our elderly or people that so it all that comes packed into knowing how to manage care with the
Right.
cultural lens of
Yes.
collective societies
Yeah.
because we have a lot in common, right? Ethnic
Yes.
ethnic groups that are non-white, to be very specific,
Correct.
have a lot more in common that they do differences,
Absolutely.
and to know
Absolutely.
that you and your crew are out there,
Yes.
intervening and really loving on these families,
Yeah.
to me it's just so awesome. I'm just so
Of
happy,
course. Of
it's all
course.
being
And that helps
yeah.
you to relate to others and just kind of like bring some of the guards that they may have
Yeah.
initially. Because my thing is I have I went to grad school and completed a healthcare administration program. Although I've never done bedside per se, but I do understand the healthcare system, how it works, and all the red tapes that we have to go through, unfortunately. It is what
Mhm.
it is. However, to your point, yes, having the background that I have been of immigrant descent, of Haitian descent, you understand that there's that. approach that you have to have when you deal with someone, when you walk into their hospital room, or you walk into their nursing facility. You really walking into their home. This is a space that they've been in either for months, for weeks, whatever it may be. So there's a certain approach that our team carries, and that goes a long way with having that homey, that cultural, relatable aspect that you can actually bring and share with that person even before you start helping them with transporting them. That's the first thing that they see and that they want to do.
Yes, absolutely. And so and so I want to call it an equitable patient experience because
Oh,
that's what
yes, love
you like
it.
that?
Yes.
Yes. I'm listening to you speak, and that's what I feel is happening, right? Is that you're delivering, yes, the transportation, but you're also helping these organizations deliver an equitable patient experience because you understand, right, their
Sure, sure,
values and the
sure.
culture and the what all of these cues, right, that
Yes.
you that make a difference in that continuum of care. And
Of course.
so I want to, and that's part of your leadership, right? As a business
Mm,
leader in the community is understanding these cues
yes.
and understanding from your lived experiences. And so being able to also lead and be part of an organization like the Greater Haitian Chamber of Commerce, knowing how busy you are and
Hmm.
that this is a volunteer position, right?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly. So can you talk to me about can you talk to me about the importance of showing up, of showing
Uh,
up, even though sometimes, and I know from experience, right? You're exhausted, you're
right.
tired, you're frustrated, you're spent, like you're mentally spent. But how do you push through? And how did you get involved with the Greater Haitian American Chamber,
Yes.
at that level, right? At that leadership level?
Right, correct. Great question. So, Central Florida has always been home for me. I migrated here when I was 11 from Haiti. Um, did part of my middle school, did high school here, and then I left and went to Massachusetts to do my schooling, but then came back here. So even as I came back home, pretty much, I was always part of the chamber. Back then, I was just, uh, I would show up for meetings and
Like a
look up
member, you
to
were a member. Yeah.
just a member. Yep. I would just look up at those who were leaders in the community, other Haitian American professionals who were there. And I admire that. I know that some of them from going to church or going to other organization that I was involved in. And I know how busy their lives were. And I admired their tenacity, admired what they were giving back to the community and their calling, right? So me getting into that platform of now having multiple hats to wear, being a wife, being a mom, being a business owner, and other elements, caregiver to your parents. So I still value the whole aspect of giving, being a contribution, right? Contributing to the greater good of our community. Because if we don't do that particular element, who else will? We
Mm-hmm.
have a responsibility, as God has given us, many blessings and many talents and opportunities to give knowledge and access to resources. We have a responsibility to give back, and that's the only way that our community is going to continue to evolve and have access to information, have access to resources. If we just say that, okay, we're good, we're doing great in our business, and we keep it all to ourselves, our community will die, literally
Mm-hmm.
will die. Individuals are counting on us who have been giving those responsibility, or those opportunities rather, to have it, to share it with them and help somebody else. This is just something that came naturally to me. And to your point, yes, there are some days where we have meetings or we have events, and I had to literally drag myself and call on my tribe, I call on my husband, I call on my mom, I call my in-laws. I'm like, look, I need you guys to do this and that for the kids. I need somebody to pick them up and just get some help because I believe in that calling. And once I step into that room, having an amazing team that I get to serve with currently with the chamber is just it's just an amazing opportunity I have. I'm very grateful of each of them. And once I show up, all my tiredness, all the crazy thing just goes out the window, and I just feel as though this is part of my calling to be able to contribute to our better community.
And so, Marlyn, I wanted to ask you though, as do you feel that as an entrepreneur, you're
Mhm.
afforded like certain liberties or freedoms, right? To be able to navigate these spaces and to volunteer in the organizations that you want to volunteer in. Because I mean, many times we're in the corporate sector, it's a little bit hard or limited
Restricted.
or
Strict.
restricted. Yes, that's a very good word. So do you feel, how do you feel that, because I feel like not all entrepreneurs are hands-on active in our communities, and it sometimes frustrates me. Do you feel that, do you see that as well?
I do. Well, I mean, the bigger thing to think about is um how does one change a community, right? You have to understand this is to me at heart is of course the Haitian American or the African American or the the Caribbean
Mm-hmm.
community at large is my first calling, right? Being of
Mm-hmm.
Haitian descent. So if you keep in mind, how do I actually change a community? How do I make a contribution to my community? And it starts with you. It starts with you bettering yourself. And then once you start bettering yourself, it's a trickle effect that changes the aspect of your family. It changes the aspect of your immediate circle, and it changes the aspect of your community at large. So you have a responsibility. I'm using that word, with some responsibility to do just that, to show up fully and wholeheartedly and be able to actually help in whatever capacity that you may help. It could be to um don't just volunteer at the place, be part of a board, because you got to where you are because somebody else or few people help you along the way, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I definitely do think that is a disservice that any entrepreneur are doing, not just to themselves but to their community at large, by not thinking that way, because we have a responsibility to do that, or else, like I said, your community will be impacted by simply the lack of your expertise that they didn't get it to take part of. So yes.
Yes, and representation too, and
Oh
right,
my gosh,
and
yes.
yes, it's
Let's
to
talk
show up.
about that. Let's talk
Yes.
about that. Because it's we say it all the time, representation matters, but even greater than we think, especially as women, right? I recall a couple years ago, I was invited to speak at Seminole County with a group of freshmen that were there. And I got them there. It was a panel setting. We were talking about our experiences, giving some tips to the students as far as what worked, my pathway as far as entrepreneurship and so on and so forth. And at the end of it all, two of the young ladies came to me and said, "Hey, I appreciate the fact that you were so bold in speaking about being of how Haiti and some of the struggles that you went through." And then they asked me this question that completely blew me off. They say, "How do you feel? How did you feel, rather, being the only female in that panel?" And literally, Sammy, my eyes just like went like, "Wait, what?" It didn't even dawn on me that I was actually the only woman in that
Yeah.
panel. But then to
Yeah.
them, that was the first thing that captivated me. Like, this girl must be bold. She must have been like whatever else that was
Mm-hmm.
going through their mind, because that was one thing that was extremely important for them to see. It was filled of other men, and I was the only girl in there speaking about entrepreneurship, immigrant life, and whatever struggles that you're going through. And those are the things, to your point, representation is extremely important, especially in our, with all with our background. So
Yes,
yeah.
totally. And vulnerability too. I love that you speak about, the experience, right? The migration experience, and
Yeah,
also about your heritage and all of that, because and about the struggles and what that looks like,
of
right?
course, of course.
Because you don't know who's going to be in the audience, and it could move one person to feel more confident, to
Right.
you serve, you're able to model behavior that they might think it's not possible. Like, it's not
Correct.
possible for a
Correct.
woman of Haitian
Right.
descent to sit on
Right.
a panel with all these men and talk about
Right.
entrepreneurship, right?
Right.
but then
It's
all of a
true.
sudden but all of a sudden it is possible, right?
Yes,
And
ma'am.
so then that person that is listening to you and seeing them reflected in you
Right.
will then be the next person that will then say,
Absolutely.
I can show up too. And so,
Absolutely.
and I can be
Absolutely.
vulnerable too. And there's no
Yeah.
problem with being vulnerable and just speaking truth,
Listen,
right? Yeah.
none of us got to where we are without a story. We all have a story. Those of us who are bold enough to share it do so gratefully. And we have to understand that our story is not even meant for us. It's meant for the next person who's hearing it, right? To your point, that person that we're actually gonna encourage us by sharing one piece of nugget. And they may be exactly at that point. And maybe one of those girls that came to me could have been somebody who's living with a grandmother, an aunt, much like myself, who had to leave their parents, their family back home to start the journey here in the US. So you never know who's listening to your story. And you have to remember again, your story is not meant for you, my dear.
So I love that. And so then question for you. So after this was brought to your attention, because yeah, I feel the same way. I just show up and I do
Yeah.
what I do, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Right.
I'm so focused on just getting it done so I can
Yes.
move on to the next thing, right? That's sometimes you're unaware. After
Yeah.
this happened though, have you become more aware of the
Um,
spaces and
yeah.
on the things you say yes to? Um and what does that look like now that you're aware of
Sure.
it?
Right. I mean, it's a greater sense of responsibility for sure is
Mm,
what really this experience have actually taught me. Because, to your point, the certain thing that we do so naturally, right? Just based on, hey, this is our passion. What we're sharing is legit, is accurate, and we've been vulnerable enough to actually open ourselves to the world because we never know who's there listening, right? But it's a greater sense of responsibility for sure. That's what this experience have taught me. Not to tailor what it is that I have to share, or the message that I have. The message is still clear, still the same, but to just be more aware of
mhm.
the space that I occupy as I walk into a room.
Yeah. Does it give you even more courage and more ammunition to speak up and
Yeah,
even be more assertive, right? Because they say, "Oh,
absolutely.
look at her, she's feisty," or "Look at
Yeah,
her, who did," because we get those looks, right? Of like,
of course,
of
of
like, who
course.
does she think she is,
Yeah.
right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes,
But
yes.
but you
But
but
we
you
know who we are. And
yeah,
and and the thing is, we are very sure of who we are. And the thing is,
exactly.
again, we didn't get to where we are just overnight. There were a lot of no's, a lot of misunderstanding, a lot of opportunity that just kind of like, were passed, that we
Mhm.
were overlooked for them, right? So
Yeah.
we fully occupy our space. We are
Yeah.
fully grounded and fully sure of what it is that we're sharing, what we capable of speaking about, or product or services that we're doing, whatever capacity that you're fulfilling as an entrepreneur. So it's all good. We got this. But to
Yes.
to 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 answer your question, a greater sense of responsibility for sure is what this particular experience have taught me.
And so what is your vision? I know that you were just sworn in, to the
Mhm.
to be the
Yes.
to lead this organization, right?
Yes.
And so can I tell you something? I was so moved. I was so moved by the whole thing, the singing and the embracing and the prayer at the beginning. That is so
Yes.
typical, right, of our
Yeah.
communities,
Yeah.
right? to surrender, right? That faith,
Yes.
and just know it's gonna be all right, right? And so what is your vision for the community, for the Haitian business community, and for the community as a whole? And
Mhm.
as we come together, right? Because we've had conversation off
Mhm.
lunch, right? Like when we went to
Mhm.
lunch, that we were talking about breaking down the silos and really coming together
Yeah.
to find common ground and really bring communities together for that
Yep.
common
Yep.
purpose.
Yep.
And so, but what is your vision first and foremost for the chamber and
Yeah.
for your community?
Fantastic question. So my key point is to just break down those stigmas. It's a struggle, unfortunately, for our community because of what's continued to go to keep going back at home. I mean, we all are looking at the news these days, and it's unfortunate that we're still dealing with political turmoil till now. Those things are still unrest, and it's an unfortunate matter. So the focus that I have myself in my contributing my time, contributing my resources to this community is to help change this whole stigma that we have here in Central Florida. And the only way we'll be able to do that is to strengthen the businesses, strengthen the professionals here, because that's really the heart of the community. Having financial power, having political allies, and making sure that as a chamber, we are a strong bridge to resources to our community. And when I mean by bridge, Sammy, I'm not just talking about, hey, you guys can contact us and then we could point you to who your local elected officials are, where the next um, business entity may be, etc. This is what generally speaking, a chamber will do. However, what we want to do is to truly partner with the other organizations in the community that holds the key to resources that could immediately impact the lives of the business owners or the community at large. So what we've done earlier this year already is to reach out to some of the elected officials, some of the other financial partners like banks and business groups that actually provide business development, etc. We've called on them and said, look, we know that you guys have been partners with us, and we appreciate the fact that you've stood up with us, you've stand by our sides. But this is the time more than ever that we actually need to break down those partnership. We need to know exactly the tools that we need. We need to know exactly the elements that we're gonna need to actually teach our members, teach our community to prepare them on the next big thing, to prepare them to evolve and to develop and to tap immediately into the resources that you guys will have. So it's really like a hands-on
Mm-hmm.
element that we look into approach. That's our vision for this year more than ever.
Yes, that's great. And to really help scale, right? So that way, because
Yes.
I just feel that as business owners, sometimes we reach a plateau and it's
Mm,
just that we just don't know where to get the information,
mm.
the tools and the resources to take us to that next level, right? And so
Right.
then it's bringing in the experts that can take a close look at our businesses, at our
Correct.
finances, at
Correct.
our operations, and all of
Yeah.
that, and give us
Right.
tangible, it's not theory,
Right.
tangible steps that we can take
Exactly.
to get from A to Z, not even B. We
Correct.
don't want A
Right.
to B. We don't want A to
Right.
B. We want to get
Right.
to
Because
Z.
that
We want,
doesn't do much for your business
yeah.
or for your situation. And to your point, it's forget about the surface level. Now we're diving deep into third and fourth layers at this point. It has to
Yeah.
be broken into where, okay, now I know I need to do this thing for my business. I need to get this certification for my business in order for me to qualify for this next resource that's been sitting here for years and I never have access to it. So we at the
Exactly.
point where this is what we're calling all of our relationship, all of our partners to do at this point.
Yes, and more like and a hands-on. I like that you use the word
Yeah.
hands-on because again, those resources have been there, but
Yes.
it's like just to let you know that they're there. But how to?
Right.
How do
Right.
you fill out the
Right. And
certification, right?
it's a constant struggle. You will hear
Yeah.
those companies will say, hey, we've had this thing, it's been there for 10 years in Central Florida. And then on the other end, the poor little business owner, this mom and pop is struggling. They're using their own funds, they're hiring their own family members because that's who they can hire because they can't really pay true employees who qualify to help them scale their business. And then this big organization sitting there, and there's several of them in Central Florida. Hey, we've had X, Y, and Z, but then we are the bridge, right? And if we're calling
Mm-hmm.
ourselves a true bridge, it has to be tangible. To your point,
Yeah.
we gotta know. All right, this resources is there, this fund is there, but how does it get to the hands of that small business owner?
Absolutely. And you know what is you know what's at the root of all this or that at the center of all this? Intention. And
Yes.
so intention. So what was the intention of setting all these
Well,
processes or whatever, right? Is it to give the illusion, right, of
yeah.
access, to give the
Yes.
illusion
You already
of
know. You
oh yeah,
already know.
exactly.
Yes.
So
Yes.
now we're on to you, right? Now we're
Correct. Correct.
aware. We
Right.
know. We've been there and so as a leader in the community that you've already been through that process, right?
Right.
You have that lived experience of knowing how to navigate, for example, the certification process, right? And so
Correct.
you're better equipped to now take it to the broader community of entrepreneurs within your
Absolutely.
circle to be able to say this is how you do it, right?
Absolutely.
Getting
So
and getting
at the
the
core of it
resources.
all, at the core of
Mhm.
it all, Sammy, we have to be a true advocate. That's
Yeah,
really the definition of it all, right? It's
yeah.
understanding that as we feel this pace and as we have access to those resources, organizations, and government elected officials, etc., we have to be a true advocate for the community at heart.
Mhm.
And the definition of that is stepping up, speaking out, and then requesting that there's certain actions that takes place within a period of time.
Yes, to really experience that change and see the change because
Yeah,
otherwise we're just stuck in the status quo and it's kind of not working for us. So, yeah,
correct.
I totally agree with you on that. This is fantastic. And this is a true example, right? That it is possible. You're able to
Mm,
take on that role and that responsibility of being an advocate, of speaking up. You're not
right,
really offending anybody, you're just speaking
correct.
truth, right? And
Right.
pointing out things in the community that may not be top of mind,
Correct.
for the people that are in power or that have the decision making
Mhm,
authority to
mhm.
make the change, right? And so I am so happy to know you, A.
Yeah.
Number B, you know that I'm right behind you in your corner for
Yes. Yes.
anything you
Yeah.
need. I'll show up,
Yes.
and number three, I wanted to tell you that I admire your bravery and your
Thank you.
courage and also your clarity, right? And the way you explain things, without beating around the bush. I think that there's a lot to be said for just being clear, right? In
Right.
how you advocate, so we strip away, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Future, we don't want to confuse anybody. Let's just be
Right.
direct, right?
Right.
Because it's the only way that we're able to tackle these struggles and these challenges that our communities face, right?
Yes, that's the only way that we can be effective is to be as clear as we can because there's a lot of people who are counting and the community survival is counting on us to do just that again. Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely. Thank you. So, what's your to one last word of advice, okay, to
Um,
entrepreneurs that are out there that
mhm,
people see them as leaders in the community, but they're not connected.
mm,
They're not plugged into advocacy and
mhm.
shall I dare call it activism, right?
Yeah.
What is your word of advice or your call to action to them?
Yeah.
I'm gonna have you wear your marketing hat. Yeah. So what is
Yes.
your
Yes.
parting words for entrepreneurs like you and me?
I would, one thing I would, to start with, I will, you know, encourage them to remain consistent. Stay consistent in what it is that your message is and what you stand for. And that will go a long way just by your message that you're trying to share, whether it's a product or service that you're pushing out there. But also it would help people to be very clear as to what it is that what your long-term goals are, what you stand for. By doing so, my call to action would just be think about those that you're doing a disservice to outside of yourself if you don't, because at some point of time you would need the next baker, bakery to be in your corner. You would need the next dry cleaner to come in your area. And think about that gem that you're dropping into whoever that next person is gonna be, and how that's gonna come full circle in benefiting you, your family, and your immediate circle. So you owe it to yourself and to your community by doing so.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Marlon. This
Of
was
course.
such an amazing conversation.
Thank
Can't,
you.
I can't wait to see you again. I'm sure I'll bump
Yeah.
into you soon. You so we can hug it out. And
Yes.
thank you. Thank you for everything you do and for just being such a fantastic leader in our community.
I appreciate it. And I also see that in you, Sammy. Thank you for what you're doing. And it's been a true honor to be part of this show this afternoon. It's it's one thing to know that hey, you are in this path, but it's another thing to have other people along the way to just encourage you. So I appreciate the opportunity to do just that and to share my story with your listeners.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Un beso.
Bye.
Bye.
Bisous. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye. This concludes this episode of I Have Something to Say. We want to thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to tell your friends about us. We're on Spotify and iTunes as well. There's more to come next week. And remember, if you have something to say, it's time to speak up.